Welcome back to the Unprofessional Kitchen, where I show you how to make great food in the average kitchen. Today, we're making an Italian staple whose versatility stretches all the way from pasta sauces to sandwiches. Of course, I'm talking about everybody's favorite, pesto. Today, we're making two varieties, the classic basil version and a sun-dried tomato pesto. They're both made exactly the same way, but have very distinct flavor profiles, one just as good as the other. So let's not waste any more time talking and get straight to cooking.
Alright, so since I forgot to shoot the startup intro, let's just get straight into it. Starting off, you'll want to place a pan on medium heat and add half a cup of pine nuts. We're going to toast the nuts as this helps bring out their natural flavor, but make sure you're always close by and there to agitate them. As simple of a step as this is, if left unattended, you'll easily burn them and ruin their taste. So flip them often and cook for about 5 to 10 minutes until you get a nice toasted brown color on them and the pine nuts start to become aromatic. Beginning with the classic pesto, you're going to want to start with fresh basil. I'm going to be using 2 cups worth, but of course adjust the amount relative to how much you want to make. We'll just pick the basil and add this to a measuring cup, making sure it's tightly packed. And as you can see, we've used almost the entire plant of basil. Make sure you have a surplus just in case you don't have a reference for what 2 cups of basil actually looks like. Next, I'm going to grate Parmigiano Reggiano on the finest setting of my box grater to make sure that it mixes seamlessly in the end result. I'm going to be using 30 grams of it and it should look like a powdery consistency like this. Now to make the pesto, traditionally you would use a mortar and pestle. However, because mine is broken and I imagine most people watching don't own one, we're going to be using a hand blender instead, but if you have a food processor, that's even better. Now we're just going to start adding everything into the insert, starting with the basil, which will tightly pack inside. Following that, we're going to add our toasted pine nuts. Next, we're going to add 2 to 3 cloves of garlic, which I'm going to finely grate. You don't need to do this since everything is going to get blended in the end, but this just reduces the chances of getting whole pieces of garlic in the final end product. Following that, we're going to add the zest of half a lemon. Now we'll add the Parmigiano Reggiano. I'm also going to be using about half a cup of good quality extra virgin olive oil. We're going to begin blending, and I like to add the olive oil in gradually, not for emulsification purposes, but because I want a more precise control over the overall texture. Because this isn't very powerful, I'm going to make sure to agitate the blender a lot while doing this, just to give the blades a hand in breaking everything down. Continue adding oil as you go until you get the desired consistency, and once there, add in a good pinch of kosher salt for seasoning. Mix that with a spoon while at the same time checking to see if there is any pockets of unblended ingredients. As always, taste and adjust for seasoning as necessary. The end result will look similar to this. Nice and consistent texture. This is perfect for using as a base for any pasta sauce or in any sandwich. Moving to the next type of pesto, we're going to repeat the first step, but instead this time we'll be toasting half a cup of walnuts instead, but the process is identical. Toast and stir frequently on a medium heat, be mindful not to burn them until fragrant and nicely colored. Next, I'm just going to rough chop some sun-dried tomatoes, and honestly this step is optional, but I still recommend doing this to avoid any headache at the blending stage. I'm using about 200 grams, but if you want to simplify your life by using the whole jar, a whole jar will typically be about 300 grams. Scrape up and transfer this to the side, and while we do that, we're also going to use the oil from the sun-dried tomatoes instead, and then just top off at the end with extra virgin olive oil if deemed necessary. Next, I'm going to julienne some basil, and a nice chef trick to easily cutting basil is to take the largest leaf and layering smaller leaves inside of it. Pack as many of them as you can fit, layering them one on top of the other like so. Then just roll it up like a cigar, place on the cutting board and start cutting as finely as possible. The end result is perfectly julienne basil. So same as before, we're just going to start adding everything into the insert. And again, grating in 2 to 3 cloves of garlic, along with 30 grams of freshly grated Parmigiano Reggiano, exactly the same as previously. Now again, gradually add the oil and start blending. You'll see that this is much thicker than before, so we'll need to agitate more, making sure to add the oil and break it down as much as possible. Again, I'm stirring with a spoon to help the blender by getting the whole tomatoes to the top and easily blended. As quickly mentioned previously, I'm going to top off with extra virgin olive oil since this pesto is significantly thicker and requires a bit more help to loosen it up and come together. Then to finish this, we're going to season with kosher salt and black pepper to taste, as well as adding in our freshly chopped basil. As you can see, this version is quite a bit thicker, which in my opinion is perfect to eat as a spread. Ultimately, both these pestos are only limited by your creativity in how to apply and enjoy it.
Alright guys, well thanks for making it to the end of the video and I hope you enjoyed it. This recipe is extremely simple from start to finish and I highly recommend that you give it a shot. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up, and if you want to see more content like this where I show you how to make great food in the average kitchen, think about subscribing to the YouTube channel. And as always, if there's anything that you'd like to see me cook, leave it in the comment section below. Until then, thanks for watching and I'll see you guys next time.